So in section 8.3, we're going to start to look at the dynamics of how the changes to individual firms impact the changes to the market, which then in turn impact the market price and impact individual firms. And so we got to define some things that are, pretty simple, but they have some special meaning within economics, right? When we're talking about entry, we're talking about when new firms enter the industry. Why do they do this? Because they are responding to increased industry profits. How do they know that there's increased industry profits?
Because it's a perfect competition and they have the perfect information.
Very good. Yes, because it's perfect competition and they have that perfect information. They can't hide their profits from other people. The producers and the consumers all have the relevant information necessary in order for them to make correct decisions. Very good. The exit is the opposite, right? This is a long-run process. So we can't exit immediately. We can shut down immediately, but we can't necessarily exit immediately, of reducing production in a response to a sustained pattern of losses. And when we're talking about the long run, we end up having a very specific type of equilibrium that we call the long run equilibrium. And the long run equilibrium is where all firms earn zero economic profits. So it's important that this economic part is in here. We're not talking about accounting profits, we're talking about economic profits. What does that mean? Well, that means that if you are running the business, you are getting a salary correspondent to what you would make if you were working as a laborer for somebody else. If you put capital into the business, you are getting return on that capital that's corresponding to what you would get if you use that capital and invested it in a risk-free treasury asset or whatever the case may be. So economic profit is not just accounting profit, it's accounting profit plus some, $80,000, whatever the case may be. So this long-run equilibrium is when all of the firms are earning zero profits, producing at an output level where the price is equal to my marginal revenue is equal to my marginal cost, and my price is equal to my average total cost. So let's look at this dynamic process in action. It's going to take a little bit of a setup, so bear with me. Of course, I didn't give myself enough room. That's better. So this is our market, and this is our firm. So in our market, we have got a downward sloping demand. We've got an upward sloping supply. Got an equilibrium price, excuse me. that we know reflects onto this curve, which we'll do it in a second. We've got some cost curves over here. We've got a average total cost curve. We've got a average variable cost curve. And last but not least, we've got a marginal cost curve. So when we extend this price, which I haven't left myself with a ton of colors left here. Oh, we'll just use white. Haha. So when we extend this price over here, the way that I drew it, right, when we extend this price and then we label it, what is the label? Well, in a perfectly competitive situation, right, the price is always going to be equal to the marginal revenue, is always going to be equal to our demand. The one that's important for us here is the marginal revenue, right? So we take this equilibrium price and it turns into our marginal revenue line. And then we use our Q star is where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost rule to find this point. That's where they cross. Then you're going to drop an anchor down to the seafloor and label that Q star. And then you're going to figure out what's happening with profits. What's happening with our profits? And so we go down to the average total cost curve, and then we go over here and we shade this profit rectangle. So we've got some positive economic profits here, right? And whenever we have positive economic profits, because of that perfect information and because of the free entry and exit, positive economic profits are going to incentivize suppliers to enter the industry. So we're going to have a shift outward of our supply curve to reflect that. Number of sellers. Remember, number of sellers was one of the determinants of supply. So if the number of sellers increases, the supply curve increases. When the supply curve increases, now we have a new equilibrium price, P double star. At this new equilibrium price, let's see what's going on here. Uh-oh. P2. MR2. D2. At this particular juncture, again, we're going to use our profit maximizing optimal rule here, right? And we're going to find where they meet. We're going to drop an anchor down. We're going to label that Q double star. Now we have to go up to where the average total cost is, because instead of having a profit, now we have a loss, right? So this rectangle here shows us the loss that happens as a result of the new entrance to the market. So this process keeps on happening, where firms are going to enter, and then that's going to push down the price, which is going to cause some firms to shut down, right? At this particular situation, we're below the shutdown point. The shutdown point is right here. So we're below the shutdown point, so this is going to cause our individual firm to go out of business, right? When the individual firm goes out of business, what does this do? This shifts our supply curve to a S3. So this was an increase in the number of sellers. Now we have a decrease in the number of sellers, which is going to bring us back somewhere like here, S3. So this first shift was from the increase in the number of sellers. The second shift is from a decrease in the number of sellers. Again, that just comes from our determinants of supply and demand. So now, to find the equilibrium price, and I know this graph is getting a little crowded, we're going to find where the new supply interacts with that demand that has not shifted. We're going to label this P triple star all the way over here. and I'm hoping I did this somewhat correct. I'm going to kind of fudge this a little bit, guys, and I know that I'm doing it. So my dotted lines are going to go up a little bit just because I need them to. Well, actually, hold on. Let's stop being lazy, especially when we have technology. We can do something like this. Yes. And then we can get rid of this, get rid of that. Now we've got this particular situation. Now I don't have to fudge it because it's right here where it needs it to be. So this situation is going to keep going until we get exactly here. And that's not even right, because it's got to be the lowest point on the average total cost curve. Right here. And then we can use the law of large dots in order to say this is where they're all equal to. So this is our long run equilibrium, where this P3 is, or this MR3, or this D3. So at this particular juncture, firms are making 0 economic profits. Remember, pi is used to abbreviate profits, which is annoying because it's also used to abbreviate inflation, but, you know, welcome to economics. So this particular one is going to have 0 economic profit. So there's no incentives for people to leave, and there's no incentives for people to join. And so this is what we call the long-run equilibrium in perfect competition land. So there's going to be the free information, and the free entry and exit is going to cause firms to adjust. Whenever those firms adjust, that's going to shift the supply curve around until we get to some point that looks like this. And let's go ahead and make another graph of it just so that we have a kind of a cleaner graph. Until we get to a point that looks like where the average total cost the marginal cost and the marginal revenue all cross the same point. That's where our long run equilibrium is going to be. So questions on that, on the dynamics between the markets and the individual firms in perfect competitive land. Okay.